Hello everyone, welcome to the Redmen TV. I'm Paul Machin. I'm with Dan Club. We're going to be discussing a couple of bits and pieces around Liverpool and Liverpool goal scoring machine is hanging up his international boots. Who could that possibly be? And a couple of the transfer related things as it rears its head probably one final time before everyone shuffles on and gets on with the footy. And we will be discussing the David Ornstein, Richard Hughes stuff, because I was tirelessly searching for the article that this came from, which, of course, there is no article. He was on the Athletic podcast and was asked about Richard Hughes. So we have tirelessly, Dan and I have both listened to it. I have not just listened to it, but I have transcribed it to see whether the furore that it's kicking off online is worth it from the comments that he actually made. But we'll come to that in due course. How are you today, by the way?
I'm wonderful. Yeah, I'm back into the swing of things now. Yesterday was a long day for me. Even though it was the most normal work day of my life, it was long because having 2 weeks not doing that sort of stuff, honestly, by 3 o'clock, and that was mid-show, by the way, I was flagging big time. So yeah, but I'm all good. Yeah, well back into the routine now.
Excellent. Well, someone is going to be changing his routine. See what I did there?
Nice segue.
Luis Suarez has announced his retirement from international football. He leaves as Uruguay's top goal scorer, this via The Athletic, but also it's all over the place. He's decided to hang up his boots. He's going to play one more game, the 2026 World Cup qualifying game against Paraguay on Friday, which is a lovely little note here that it's Estadio Centenario, which is their primary stadium and the home of the inaugural 1930 FIFA World Cup. He said, I've been thinking about this and analysing it. I believe this is the right time. I want to be relaxed when I play my last game with the national team. I'll be just as excited to play as I was in 2007. 2007.
Long time ago.
God, he's been an international footballer for Uruguay as long as I've been with my missus. That's mad. That 19-year-old kid is now a veteran player, an older player, however you want to call it, with an incredible history with the national team. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is going to happen eventually. Just to clarify, he's not retired. That, and anyone who thinks so is probably just delivering a sad indictment of the quality of MLS. But yeah, look, what a footballer. I quite like that. Imagine being so good that you can go, this is going to be my last international game.
Yeah, he wasn't starting to go out on his terms without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, his international career, much like his football career, by and large, has been outstanding, but also checkered. I mean, that handball, that famous handball.
That was the moment I fell in love with him, genuinely, because it's a pure scumbag manoeuvre.
Yes. Yeah, it was.
But to not just save it from going in, gets the red card, but then he sits there and he celebrates.
Watches every moment, and it worked out in the end, didn't it? Yeah, they got the better of that particular game. So yeah, I think his international career, like I say, has been remarkable. His football career has as well. But it's interesting the timing. Obviously, he feels like this is the right time. But this is on the back of his mate Darwin Núñez getting a 5-game international ban. Yeah. So he's doing one more game, and then essentially you're on your own for the next 4 lads. I'm off. So what Uruguay's front line looks like thereafter remains to be seen. But yeah, I think it's
Cavani still playing?
That was my first thought a minute ago when I started this train, but I'm not entirely sure. Probably. I think he might be actually. But yeah, it's listen, again, exceptional, absolutely exceptional football career, exceptional international career. But it'd be a shame for Darwin, because I think Darwin quite liked linking up with Luis Suarez and learning off him and tapping into his nod. Not that he can, he'll still be able to do that, of course, but there's been quite a relationship, a bromance forged between those two, certainly since Darwin arrived at Liverpool as well. So I think Suarez has took him under his wing even more so that'll be gone. But yeah, what a career he's had.
Yeah, on the subject of international football, then moving on, this is Anfield covering this one yesterday after Jack Lusby writing, Federico Chiesa left out of the Italy squad for September's international break at the request of his club, of a plan in place for their new signing. Chiesa's family and Luciano Spalletti's plans. However, he had a plan initially to include him for the internationals. He said, Chiesa and I spoke and made a fair assessment. I would have brought him as an extra player, not participating in the games. He told me that he's spoken to his new club and he needs to do specific preparation work with them. Wow. I mean, talk about starting off your Liverpool managerial career well. He's won 3 from 3. He's won at Old Trafford, and he seems to have a reasonable working relationship with an international manager.
It's unheard of, isn't it? That last bit, yeah, it's remarkable, really. But yeah, and I like this a lot. There's lots of different sort of strands to this story that I really appreciate, and one of them is that Spalletti wanted to take Chiesa along just for the trip, because that suggests to me that he's just a boss lad to have around as well. You're getting them vibes of how happy he is to be a Red, but the fact that he would have took him, even though he knew he wasn't going to play any part in the game, speaks to me that he's just a great person to be in the change rooms, in the squad, and maybe you can pass on some of his wisdom and his knowledge in around some of the players as well. So that's a big plus point.
It also says he knows he's not fit enough to play footy.
Well, yeah.
So Spalletti's not going to take him and play him when he's not had the pre-season effectively.
Yeah.
So actually, I mean, ultimately, that's one of the reasons why Liverpool will have been able to have this sort of sway. Is he's gone, I'd have taken him just to get, he's basically saying, I'd have taken him to get him fit. But now, look, let him stay at Liverpool and let him get fit instead. I mean, again, it sounds daft, but we have loads of this, or not enough of it really, of like, just having a sensible conversation around something. Italy want Chiesa to be boss. Liverpool have just signed him. They want him to be boss. So it's much better for him to be at the AXA for 2 weeks than it is for him to be off around Europe.
Yeah, not just for fitness purposes as well, but in terms of actually learning the new system, the new style, the integration with the squad and some of the teammates that may stick around, even the staff members as well, and getting to know his new environment, all that sort of stuff. But you're right, that working relationship and being able to have that grown-up conversation bodes well for the future, because who knows, there may be a time whereby Chiesa has picked up a little niggle ahead of international break in his friendlies. We might want to say to Spalletti, do you mind not? And then who knows, it may well work in our favour in that sense as well. So yeah, again, a lot to like about this. But you're right, the overriding point on it is he played no footy. He's done no pre-season whatsoever because he was away from Juventus' and Thiago Motta's plans from the outset. So he needs to get up to speed, and the quickest way for him to do that from a Liverpool point of view and in Liverpool's mould and Liverpool's style is for him to stay at the AXA. So yeah, win-win.
Yeah, really interesting to see how what training he does, because Slot talked about it post-match on Sunday that he's flying back to the Netherlands. So he's going back for a few days holiday, and that they will give the non-internationals some time off regardless. But I wonder whether this is going to be one of them situations where, yeah, there's going to be quite a few players not gone. I mean, like Harvey Elliott's not with the under-21s, I don't think.
No, Curtis Jones hasn't gone anywhere. Darwin Núñez is mentioned.
Darwin Núñez has got that 5-game ban, so he'll be around. Chiesa will be around. It's interesting to see. There's a couple. There's a few there. Am I right in saying Gomez didn't get called up for England either? I think it's only Trent, isn't it? So yeah, there'll be a few there. It might be worth his while. So yeah, I mean, particularly on the Chiesa stuff, it's just fitness work he needs, and then you can worry about that. So the aim might be, can you get him a place on the bench for Forest? So that would be nice, so we can get a nice look at him in the flesh as well. Would be great.
I seen it was tentatively earmarked that the West Ham Carabao Cup fixture might be his debut, because he's also mentioned that he wasn't going to play any under-21s games, which I was bitterly disappointed about, because the prospect of watching Federico Chiesa down at Kirby against, I don't know, Blackburn under-21s was a mouth-watering one for me. But yeah, ultimately, whatever gets him fit and firing and match sharp in the quickest possible time is what Liverpool need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to actually, you know what, we'll hold on to the Richard Hughes Ornstein stuff, because I want to get the transfer rumour thing kind of out the way, because I just want to put this up front. I'm talking about it because I think it's important that people talk about things and remind everyone that most of this stuff is nonsense. But Liverpool.com, because it's obviously a Reach Media output, is covered in adverts, and I can't basically get to the article right now, but I will do in due course. But they say, second outlet makes Martin Zubimendi to Liverpool transfer claim ahead of January. Liverpool could revive their transfer interest in Zubimendi as soon as the January window, after speculative claims from Spain. A more concrete update has arrived. Has it though, Liverpool.com? In all answer, really no. It's Fabrizio Romano basically has said Liverpool like him, they still like him. There's a chance they might, like, if he doesn't sign a new deal, which would take out the, change the release clause or whatever, or offer him better terms, he might yet be able to be tempted again. It's a load of nothingness, isn't it?
It is. No, it is. It absolutely is, yeah. But I think a lot of people are putting 2 and 2 together and potentially making 5 with this one ever so slightly, because I think a lot of people, including myself, are harking back to the Virgil van Dijk situation, whereby we didn't get him in the summer, we revisited that and resurrected the deal in the January, and the rest is history. With Zubimendi, it's slightly more complex in so much as obviously he was the one who ultimately backed away from the deal and pulled the plug and said, no, I want to stay where I am. But it felt like at the time, yes, obviously, his home comforts were a big reason as to why he made that decision. But also there's a lot of reports at the time. I spoke to Sociedad journalists in the round as well, saying they were going to give him, going to make him the highest earner ever at that football club. Now that hasn't happened.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And also, factor in the fact that Real Sociedad have made a pretty sluggish start to the season as well. He's been in and around Europe with Sociedad in recent years. So the law and the impact of a move to Liverpool wasn't as massive as some people may have felt it was. But if they're now, swanning around mid-table as they currently are, I think the 13th in La Liga, like, what's that for Zubimendi? You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, maybe the prospects of that move away are a little bit more tempting, a bit more appealing. So if the new contract doesn't happen on better terms, as you say there, and all that sort of stuff, and maybe with a change release clause, and Real Sociedad continue to just tread water a little bit between now and January, who knows? Because clearly Liverpool like him. The fact is Liverpool liked him so much, there was no alternative.
Yes.
So it wouldn't shock me massively. The stories, whatever, but it wouldn't shock me massively if Liverpool retain their interest and were to revisit in January.
It's just you'd need some major guarantees. I think ultimately, I think you'd probably need Sociedad to accept a bid for him. Is my worry, because if we're left in that situation where he's left trying to trigger, because it stands to reason. They had some sort of guarantee or some sort of word that he wanted to join. Yes. They've not just gone, hey lads, go and trigger that release clause for us, will you? And we're going to tell everyone that we're going to make you do this thing. And then he's going, actually, now you're all right. Like, oh, whoa, you kept it quiet. It wouldn't have, no one would have known about it. So I think now that he's shown his sort of true colours in that regard, and look, I don't hate it, don't disrespect wanting to stay at your hometown club, look, if Liverpool were playing in League Two, I'd rather be playing for Liverpool than, anyone else. But yeah, just on the Romano stuff, it's funny. The summary on Liverpool.com says, while admitting he had no idea whether or not Liverpool will revive a move, Romano confirmed that Zubimendi has been identified as the perfect player in the position. They claim the 25-year-old will still be on a list at Anfield, confirming that the appreciation from the club is still there. What the fucking hell is this? He might not be on the list, by the way. You know what I mean? They might have gone, because mentality, like judging a character. They've done all the due diligence. They always do that. They try and get as many character references as possible. But one of the ultimate character references is the player saying he will and then deciding not to. Like, and some, again, that might be a huge thing. Maybe they go, oh, loyal, tick. Maybe he's on another list. Maybe he's on 2 lists now. But there's every chance that he's not. So it feels like nice low-hanging fruit because it's been snubbed. It's like when someone turns you down, you know what I mean? You ask someone else and they say no, you don't go off that person immediately. You would still retain an interest in, if they definitely were interested in the player, maybe you would. I don't know, feels like shite to me anyway. I've got another one. Right, Jared Branthwaite, Football Insider 247 with an absolute non-article here. The headline from Wayne Vasey here. His dad, Royston, was a very popular man in the 90s and 2000s. Liverpool have made behind-the-scenes Jared Branthwaite move. Sources. They've made a quote, they have a concrete and active interest in signing Jared Branthwaite. Sources have told Football Insider. The shock speculation about the centre-back making what would be a sensational intercity move stemmed from Liverpool making contact with a 22-year-old agent, according to sources. It's believed he's interested in making what would be an explosive move. It didn't look that way when he was celebrating in the derby, by the way. No. Just to be clear on that one. And then it goes on to say nothing. It talks about how many players have been transferred. He's got a contract until 2027. I do think Liverpool, I think it's quite commonly held about underground knowledge that Liverpool really rate, or certainly did in the previous regime. Jared Branthwaite, he ticks that box we talked about of like left-sided centre-half, is versatile, is young, has got a high ceiling, seems to have a lot of the attributes that you'd be looking for in a long-term, maybe Virgil van Dijk replacement. But what is this? What is this article?
Yeah, ultimately, yeah, absolutely. And again, any transfer conversation that we have now is immediately rendered utterly pointless because of the time of the year that we're in. Like the transfer window closed a few days ago. So up until between now and sort of like mid to late December, who cares? However, yeah, I think you're right. I think Liverpool definitely will have an admiration for Gerard Branthwaite. It's hard not to, ultimately. I know, obviously, not been involved at the start of this season because of injury and stuff like that. But last season, he was the standout player for Everton in what was a dire Everton side at times. So, and also, you couple that in with Everton's financial situation, Everton's on the pitch situation as well, and where they're heading or where they're not heading, as the case may be. I think it's clear to see that a deal could be done for Gerard Branthwaite. Obviously, it was Man United who were leading that particular charge over the summer. Crossing the park had its own complications. It's very rarely done. There's been a handful of examples down the years. Nicky Barmby, Xavi, people like that. Yeah, so it's not easy is what I'm trying to say. But I think, great player. I think, it mentions there the speculation stemmed from agent talk. It didn't. It stemmed from bookmakers' odds changing. Is how it felt to me a few weeks back. So I'm not entirely sure how much concreteness there is to the particular links. But yeah, you've just said brilliant footballer, very, very high ceiling, lots of potential, in the mould of somebody who could become a bit Virgil van Dijk-esque. I think he has similar qualities, a long way off that right now. But yeah, great prospect. And if there was a deal possible there, if he fancied it, and if Liverpool and Everton could sit down together for long enough to make it happen, I would be over the moon.
I think he's a really good player. I'll jump back into that in a second, but Joseph Giorgis gets it. It's a local site for local people. Yeah, good on you.
Nice.
Good to know. Good to know the humour's not wasted on every single human in the building. The Branthwaite stuff. I had a theory heading into the last day of the transfer window, and where that Liverpool hadn't shut down the possibility that any more business was going to be done. And I went into the last day, I was like, your pool of who you can get is almost done by geography. The later it gets in the window, it's not humanly possible to get someone from one part of the world to another part of the world and do medicals in time. So the sort of like bubble, the circle around, if you're having a manhunt, like you draw a circle on a map of where it could possibly come from. And I had like one little eye on Branthwaite, thinking, I wonder whether it's just like, we're just going to hold on. We're just going to have Everton on speed dial, and just every hour just go, any interest in taking it as your financial situation? Fancy 50 million quid? We'll give you 50 million quid for him. And we know they wanted much more than that from Manchester United, but he was an example, I think, of the closer you get to the end of a window, other defenders had kind of moved, and he was I think he feels like another opportunistic signing, because at some point, unless someone like Manchester United go, oh yeah, go on, have 80 million like idiots, Everton will have no choice but to take a cut price deal for someone like that in the near future.
I think you have to be spot on, and you're right, because obviously Man United addressed that situation by going and getting De Ligt instead, and Everton's financial situation, the goalposts had changed in that, even in the time whereby United were so keen, they were standing firm on their £78 million valuation, whatever it was. That changed because the prospective buyers walked away. That with the AS Roma guys, Daniel Friedkin, that fell through, so that couldn't happen. So Everton were in limbo once again, not knowing who the takeover was going to be, not knowing who was going to be their owners. So all of a sudden, Liverpool may have sensed that opportunity and gone, the threat of administration's actually hanging over your head now, unless you get X amount of money through the door. So I think you're right, there was, maybe a glimmer of hope that deal could happen, but as it is, it didn't. But again, I come back to my overriding point on it, Liverpool will clearly like the player.
Yeah, and look, Guehi not moving was an important thing here as well, because actually it meant that nobody moved for that kind of money. He was being touted at £75 million. He moves, and Branthwaite, okay, you're not getting maybe 75, but it could work in Liverpool's favour. Well, Guehi just played at the Euros, Branthwaite didn't get picked, so he's worth less than that.
You're benchmarking there, exactly.
So you might have been able to negotiate something. But look, time will tell whether Liverpool really want to go back in for that in the short term. But yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see Gerard Branthwaite end up, because they're not even owned by this, like people who would give a shit about the Merseyside derby kind of thing anymore. They're owned by administrators who, or if not literal, just people who just need to balance the books. Right, before we react to the David Ornstein Athletic podcast about Richard Hughes, just a couple of things to draw your attention to. Tomorrow, Yes, Wednesday night. Me, Chris and Steve are on stage live in London, Indigo at the O2. Tickets are available. I'll be honest, it's sold absolute gangbusters and I am beyond happy with how it's gone. But the room is massive. It's basically the biggest room we've ever been in, pretty much. So whereas we've sold out events on the numbers that we've done, there's a huge room. So it promises to be a massive event. But the point is that there's loads of space for you to come down and have a party with your mates. Keo's going to be banging out the tunes. We've got a boss little show planned where it's not going to be dull and dry and sat in a room all wringing hands and talking sensibly. It's going to be us up on stage taking the piss out of our biggest rivals and celebrating Arne Slot's arrival and the greatest players and moments of the Jurgen Klopp reign as well. So if you just want to feel good about yourself, feel good about Liverpool, and you just want to party in midweek to ease some of the international break blues, then come and get your tickets. Indigo at the O2, the o2.co.uk. I've got tickets. AXS.com. I've got tickets, and Ticketmaster. I've got access to tickets as well. So go on any of those and fill your boots. And we've got a brand new t-shirt out right now on redmenmerch.com, celebrating Liverpool's not one, not two, but 3-0 victory over Manchester United at Old Trafford. It's a little closer look. Luis Diaz, Trent Alexander-Arnold, and Mohamed Salah. The scoreline: Manchester United 0, Liverpool 3. If you've got any manx in your life that you just want to shine on for the next few weeks, and probably realistically until we play them next, available in a wide array of colour schemes. So you head over to redmenmerch.com and get that. Right. Should we do it?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the tweet that kicked this all off this morning. The Athletic, at The Athletic FC, tweeted, Richard Hughes inherited a daunting in-tray as Liverpool's new sporting director. David Ornstein says people within the industry believe he's made a fantastic start. And literally that was it. And a lot of people, and the immediate reaction was, well, the PR machine's in full effect and he's not, what kind of good job he's done. Why is he saying this? Why is this all coming out? And I have to admit, someone coming out to bat for Richard Hughes on the back of a transfer window when we signed a goalie for next year and effectively a backup right winger, when we didn't get a number 6 and we didn't strengthen the back line either, feels a little ill-conceived.
Yeah, I think without context, most definitely, because the headline there suggests that Liverpool have been all conquering this summer, and we haven't. Not away from the football pitch anyway. We have on the pitch, thankfully, where it all really matters. But no, and also a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, have had multiple debates on this in recent times, and have sort of included the contract situation involved in this as well. Now, that can happen now. It can happen anytime. It doesn't need to be in the summer necessarily. However, I think it's fair to say that Richard Hughes has been in situ now for long enough to have at least started to address the contract situation. We know he hasn't done with Salah. Who knows about the other two? So it's not... That's a glowing endorsement for Richard Hughes, and we're going to speak more about the details in a moment. And it is very glowing. He's very sort of effusive in his praise, and he may well have heard lots of decent things in and around the industry. But from an outsider's point of view, looking in, again, those headline things that have happened, there's some good, smart, shrewd things in the round as well. I think Chiesa falls into that category. Some of the outgoings most definitely do. However, it hasn't been a stellar summer for Liverpool. Not at all. Quite the opposite in many senses. And we spoke a lot about the Zubimendi situation earlier on. That optically, whatever you think about why it came to the conclusion that it did, wasn't a good look for Liverpool at all. We spent 2 weeks chasing a player that ultimately turned around and went, nah, you're all right. It's not good. Yeah,
exactly. You know, if you're saying that your main target that you were going for, the most obvious transfer move Liverpool making was for a central midfielder, number 6, whatever you want to call it, and that didn't get over the line. And look, there's mitigating circumstances, as we said. The player ultimately at the last minute decided I can't go through with this and didn't. That's not on Liverpool. No. That him not going to Liverpool is not on Liverpool, but Liverpool not moving forward with someone else could prove to be. But I just want to expand it out, because what I was then when looking for was I presumed that, because I only caught it at a glance and I saw more of the reaction than the original tweet itself. I thought, he must have written an article or whatever, which would feel very much like a PR piece. It's not. He's on the Athletic podcast. James Pearce and Carl Anker are doing a post-match sort of analysis, breakdown of the Liverpool beating Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford podcast. And Ornstein comes in around the
25-ish, yeah.
It's about a 40-odd minute podcast, and he comes in around 25 to 30 minute mark. and is on it for about 5 minutes. And I went about transcribing this. There's a couple of bits and pieces. Don't put this up on screen because it's an awful Word doc and it doesn't really make a great deal of sense. But I'm sure someone will pick this up at some point. Maybe we'll even bang it in an article on the website if we've got time. But regardless, it initially comes on and just says he's made a fantastic start to his Liverpool career with the appointment of Arne Slot and the handling of the transfer window that was under a lot of scrutiny, but appears to be quite shrewd so far. But then says the contracts are the elephant in the room. So it makes an admission that the contracts are a thing to be done. He says it's been quiet, but quiet doesn't mean bad. Sometimes you could say less is more. And from the opening rounds of fixtures, this is David Ornstein quote, by the way, opening rounds of fixtures, I'd argue that Liverpool looked the best team in the Premier League. Most settled, exciting, playing better football right now than towards the end of Jurgen Klopp, which is... Yeah. That's a personal opinion from him. I think most people would look at Man City and say they're top of the league and they don't look like they've had half the team out and they don't look like they've broken a sweat just yet.
There's a juggernaut about that.
If someone wants to tell me they think Liverpool have been the best team in the Premier League so far, I'm here for it. He then says, also credit to Richard Hughes. I've said this a few times on air. Some fans have reacted quite badly, but I think bit by bit they're starting to say similar things. Watching, listening and talking to people who are better versed in the situation than us, talking about journalists, and they're very complimentary. I speak to other clubs, directors, people that move in a similar world, sporting directors, technical directors, and so far they're taking their hat off to Richard Hughes. So I think that's one of the things that's sort of central to this is he actually seems to think he's doing quite a good job, which is, again, it's a personal opinion on his regard. But a lot of this whole thing centres, I think, a bit around his perception inside that world is almost what he's reporting on. And the standards are different. The standards by which he's being judged by CEOs and technical directors and sporting directors of other clubs, because all the stuff that we've yada yada over, we've not even mentioned getting 20 million for Carvalho, getting near 30 million for Sepp Vandenberg. We've not even we were just listing the things and we've not even bothered to put that out. So I get it. If you were looking at someone doing their job from that industry, is it understandable to look at him in a positive light?
Yeah, I think so. I think mostly because the way I sort of read into this is that a lot of what this centres around feels like not necessarily the done business, the hard and fast, that's happened. That's a thing, and that's what they're the headline, the topics that Liverpool fans will discuss and pore over and, talk about the successes or otherwise of those. It feels to me like David Ornstein is more referring to just how he goes about his business, or the cut of his jib, if you like, in and around those circles in and around that industry, and the way he's handled himself, the way he's approached people, some of the conversations he's probably had, maybe even without deals coming to fruition, and maybe he's been in some different topics of different conversations, of different negotiation tables, and the deal hasn't happened for whatever reason, but the way he's got himself to that situation has been praised and has been lauded. That's how it feels to me, as opposed to actually, well, didn't he do a great job getting 25 million for Sepp Vandenberg? Yes, he did, but this is probably more about the stuff that hasn't happened than what necessarily has. Even as a Zubimendi deal, like, he will know how close Liverpool got to Zubimendi and the way Richard Hughes handled himself throughout that. Now, that doesn't happen, so we can't speak about it in detail, but Richard Hughes may well be getting a lot of credit for the way he got Liverpool to that table and that far into that deal. So, yeah, it's a really interesting...
No credit with us, is it?
No, exactly, because it doesn't happen.
Yeah, you've not got well done. It's like the whole... You've got centre forwards got into a good position but missed the shot.
Yeah.
And there's people who go, well, he's missed the shot, who gives a shit, he's rubbish.
But there's others who go, he was there.
Exactly. You've got to be in the place to miss them.
That's how it feels to me anyway, and I think a lot of people will be crediting Richard Hughes for that. Not just being there in terms of a Zubimendi thing, but actually the conversations and the way he's gone about getting into Liverpool, into certain positions, into certain conversations, and into certain ways over the course of the summer. Now, again, I'll come back to it. Everyone just sees that initial tweet. Everyone just sees the initial quotes that come out of of it and go, but we haven't done this, and this, so who gives a shit?
Well, we'll just follow on with some more stuff, because he talks about, again, the position of him coming from Bournemouth and that added scrutiny, because a lot of people are going, well, who is he, and is he good enough to take over the Liverpool job? Michael Edwards clearly thought so. That was his pick as sporting director when he took over his role as CEO of football for Fenway. He didn't have much time to get his feet under the table. He was working at Bournemouth, and of course he would have an eye on his next job, but it wouldn't have been easy, nor would have been replacing Jurgen Klopp after 9 years of the club. He had to set about instilling a new culture and environment at the AXA, employing new staff in various positions, bringing deals to the table for departures, such as Carvalho, Sepp Vandenberg, overseeing that, raising yet more money through exits. Liverpool have been so good at that. Look at what they, then looking at what they could do incoming. They decided they could only do things that would certainly add to the squad and improve it. So a number 6 was on the agenda. Everyone could see that. Everyone could see a mile off that it was something Liverpool could do. They should do. They were in agreement with that, but it had to be the right player. He then goes on to talk about the Zubimendi thing, and obviously, and he says there's no panic afterwards and no sudden knee-jerk to someone who might not be quite right for you. And then he goes on to say the Mamadashvili thing deserves credit because you're buying a long-term replacement for Alisson. And that's one other thing on this, is that we're looking at Van Dijk and Salah and going, you can't let them leave because you've not got their replacements in. No one wants to face a summer where you let them go for free and you don't own players even remotely as good. And that's not Richard Hughes's. That's a legacy problem left for him. And actually, he's looking at Alisson, who's got 2 years on his contract, and going, I'm not going to let that. I don't want to be in that position with Alisson. I'm going to buy his replacement for next year, and then at least I've got a stronger set of cards. So actually, again, it's a positive, but not one that you really bank this summer. Anyway, they said they clearly considered the wide position, because Anthony Gordon was on the agenda before the PSR deadline. That didn't materialise, but then bang out of the blue, this deal for Chiesa. I don't see any downside to it. Really good player when available. His contract had wound down to its final 12 months. Juventus need to do business. Price seems to be a potential bargain. And this is the really interesting part for me, this sort of last chunk. He says, and again, if you just joined, this is David Ornstein's quotes from the Athletic podcast, which people have been sort of discussing without really looking at the quote. I definitely think they were keen to be brave and stand by the courage of their convictions, to not do anything just for the sake of it, and to work with what they have, despite external noise from people like us and sections of the fan base. Do what they think is right, which can be very costly, especially at a club that doesn't have unlimited resources and tries to operate sustainably. I'm taking this as a direct quote, so it doesn't make great sense as a sentence, but what he means is it's getting it wrong is more costly than not doing anything, potentially anyway. All this points, at this point, I think it's a job really well done by Richard Hughes and those around him. But these are embryonic stages, We could be back from the international break and things could change. We'll be having different conversations. So it's not a huge... Look, ultimately, there was not a lot to this, because I agree with the vast majority of the stuff in there, other than... And I think... I think the criticism comes from the contract situations haven't been sorted, and Liverpool haven't signed the players in every position that you would ideally have looked to either fill a gap or upgrade upon. But when you consider the volume of what he had to do in his first summer in the job, and the fact that the contract thing isn't over with the transfer window, there's still, I think the embryonic stages thing is a point that this is month 4, 3, maybe even being in the job. We'll have to see. We'll have to judge him a bit further down the line, I think, is this. Yeah,
I agree with that. What I would say is, it feels as though, and the in-tray point being bulging is accurate, and there was a lot to be dealing with. And now the Arne Slot appointment, if he was at the forefront of that, like we're being led to believe here, then, hats off to him for that one without a shadow of a doubt, because the start to life Arne Slot has made Liverpool has been seamless, has been exceptional. What a pick, what a find he's been, especially with so much noise around Xabi Alonso and how perfect and how dealer fit he was. When that didn't happen, we all kind of went, who's it going to be then? So to get Arne Slot and to have the cohesion and the success that's showing early doors is remarkable. So yeah, great. However, what I would say is, it feels as though, in terms of priorities, in terms of the jobs and the things that needed doing, he's gone about it in a very odd way to me, because, securing a long-term successor to Alisson, yeah, fine, but all the talk at the moment, literally from Alisson, is he'll be here until 2027. Yeah. So did that need addressing right now? I'm not entirely sure. The backup winger thing, I really like the Chiesa deal. It's got loads of upside, very, very, opportunistic, to use that phrase, and very, very cheap, to use a more simpler phrase. However... However, is that what we needed necessarily? No, I wouldn't have said so. I think the 6 would be more pressing. So, yeah, it's odd. And again, the contracts fall into that conversation as well. And you are right, ultimately I've been banging the drum to say it could happen at any point between now and January. Essentially, who cares? However, that would have been the first thing. I remember having conversations months ago when Richard Hughes first got, earmarked as the successor, as the appointments. Like, you've got to deal with these contracts, mate. Trent Alexander-Arnold's there. He is Mr. Liverpool. He is the future of this football club. Get that dealt with straight away. And yet here we are, nothing.
Yeah, the Trent one's the most baffling one to me, to be perfectly honest, because if nothing else, like he's 25, like get him the deal that he deserves, because he's world class, and he's going to be world class for the next longest time. The Salah and Van Dijk stuff, and I think a lot of people, because I'm hearing a lot of people say the same things, and I've said it too, so I count myself amongst that, of like, both started the season brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly, so. 3 games into the season, Salah looks like the best player on the planet, signing down to a new contract. When we come back from the international break, we play 2 games a week until forever, basically. And then when that happens, for me, the Chiesa deal is going to make a huge amount of sense, because Mo Salah at 32, I don't think he should be playing 2 games a week, or at least 95 to 100 minutes, 2 games a week, because Salah's legs fall off in the final month of every season, pretty much, and doubly so when he's had, normally when he's had like international tournaments or whatever in the summer. So I think we've got to be careful with him, and we saw last year how he, injury and then all that kind of stuff started to wane a touch. If I've come this long on the contract, and this is just playing devil's advocate, if I've waited till now, I'm probably going to wait at least another month and watch how Van Dijk and Salah cope with Liverpool playing 2 games a week, because it's great to say Salah's the best player on the planet when he's playing 1 game a week, but can he maintain that level? And how does he react to being rotated? And what does that look like? And also, how does Chiesa sell? And all of these kind of factors. Before I would be making any wild decisions. Trent is a no-brainer for me, because he's 25 and you're not going to lose money on Trent. But the Van Dijk thing and that is, I'd sort of put Salah in isolation as well in around that conversation, just because of the type of the player that he is, and of course the finances involved and all that sort of stuff as well. I think you could have boxed off Van Dijk because he's your captain as well, which would have been a nice sort of headline grabbing. Okay, Richard Hughes just walked in the door. He's got your vice captain Trent and Virgil tied down for the next 2-3 years, whatever it may be. Certainly in Van Dijk's case, I think Trent, you could argue, you could be talking a Chelsea length of contract for Trent, couldn't you? And nobody would bat an eyelid in Liverpool circles whatsoever. But I think Salah, there's definitely a conversation in the round waiting a little bit longer. However, I said this yesterday on our podcast, like, it still baffles me Liverpool haven't at least had a conversation with him about what he wants to do. What are your aspirations? What are your thoughts on this, mate? That is the bit I can't come to terms with whatsoever. The thing with this is, also Tomato saying, I'd give Mo and Berge 2-year deals, Trent 5. Yeah, I give Trent 5 years. The thing is, do Mo and Berge want 2-year deals is always the thing in this, because we go, it's sensible, you're in your 30s now, surely a 2-year deal. I mean, we'll never know, because it looks like they've not even spoke to Salah, which is fucking stupid. But there's always more to it than this. But again, we'll see how this transpires. I don't think I'd be shocked. I'd be shocked if all 3 of those players walk out on free transfers at the end of the season. I would be fucking raging if I've actually had to watch that happen as well.
But the thing is, as well, with this, history tells us when it comes to Van Dijk and Salah especially, that you are right about the Salah point. I think if we went this conversation like last May, no one would have been banging down the door and saying you've got to give Salah a new 2-year deal or whatever on the most money ever earned to Liverpool. However, with Michael Edwards back in situ, albeit not as sporting director, the chief executive of football for FSG, history tells us that he doesn't like giving deals to people of this age. So I'm not sure what it looks like.
What does Trent want as a contract, though, as well, by the way, in this? Does Trent want to be Liverpool's top earner? Because he's 25. He's the only player who's world class in the squad who's got years at the top left in front of him. And so, actually, let's pose a question. And no one wants this to be the case, but would you rather sign Trent down? If you could only you only have one lad on 350 grand a week, would you rather keep Salah and let Trent go, or keep Trent and let Salah go?
Trent stays at his football club at the sake for the cost of the others. Like, without a shadow of a doubt. You move heaven and earth to get Trent's contract sorted. And if therefore you have to forego Virgil van Dijk and Mohamed Salah, as much as it pains me to say it, but that's the reality of the situation.
And hopefully it's not as simple as that. I'm offering a thought experiment more than anything else. And that
it shouldn't be the case that needs to happen, by the way. However, if it was, Trent stays regardless.
And the thing with Trent, I also get it with Salah, because like the Chiesa thing is an example. If you just sign Salah down to a 2 or 3 year contract extension, are you convincing Chiesa that he's to come and take a 4 year contract at Liverpool? Now, we're all presuming he's been told he's a backup to Salah. I'm not sure you tell one of Italy's best players that he's a backup to Mohamed Salah. I think you probably tell him that if he really knuckles down in training and he does the business, he's got 6 years on Mohamed Salah. Mm-hmm. He's got every chance of being the guy who does fill his boots at some point in the future. But again, I'm speculating. William Raymond, and this is another one I see a lot, says it's not 2005. Players are in far better shape now. 35 is the new 32. They have at least 3 years left at the top. And I, again, 100% agree with that, except that it wasn't true for Sadio Mane or Roberto Firmino or Fabinho or Joel Matip. Or Gini Wijnaldum.
Certainly not Thiago.
Certainly not Thiago. So all of these brilliant footballers have been at Liverpool, and they're all now in their early to mid 30s, and they're all done. Basically, and even Jordan Henderson's, playing in the Eredivisie, which is fine when you're signing players, trust me. But no, it's this is the thing. These two are specimens, but I don't think. I think Liverpool, and this is just what Liverpool do, I think they will be looking at it in under the microscope, because it is a finely balanced thing of, it's great going, he's fit, they're as fit, and they could, everyone's saying Salah could do a Ronaldo. He absolutely could do, or he might only have 2 years left at the absolute top, and then his legs will fall off, and then you're in a it depends what contract have you given him, etc., etc. I reiterate this. For me, I think Verge is an absolute no-brainer, because he's a centre-half. He's got I don't think he's going to lose a noticeable amount of pace in the coming years, and his just all-round presence is such a huge thing to the club. Trent is an absolute no-brainer, because he's 25 and he's a Scouser, and he's going to be the next captain of the footy club. Mm-hmm. Salah, I would do it, if nothing else, just because I'd then do it and sell him, if I'm being honest, and then you've got the best of both worlds. But he remains such a weird situation, because he's on 350. He's the most expensively paid player at the football club.
One thing we do know about Michael Edwards, and to kind of come back to what you were saying there, is emotions don't come into his thought process whatsoever. So as much as we'll sit here as fans and say, we've got to keep Mo Salah because of X, Y, Z, and Virgil van Dijk likewise, Trent's a completely different topic once again. But Michael Edwards won't be looking at the emotional side of Mohamed Salah. He'll be looking at the numbers and the data, and that may well have a different outcome.
Yeah, look, this is the problem, is the football logic. We all analyse football with the football that we watch. And this is what the issue, where Liverpool have stolen a march over the years, is that you've got football people in these conversations, but they've got data as well, and one doesn't supersede the other. They actually have a melding of the conversations. One of the things Ian goes on about, Michael Edwards is not a data guy. He's just a guy who appreciates the use of data. Michael Edwards is a football guy. He's an eyeball test guy who's taught and learned the importance of the other stuff. He surrounds himself with those things, and they all get in a room and they make these conversations. We don't have the data. We don't watch him in training. We don't see how these guys react. They might be looking at it. They might be looking at like the stats, so whatever stuff, the running data or whatever, and he's just getting worse and worse in training every week, and we don't see it on the pitch, because he's still able to produce it there, but it's diminishing returns off the pitch. Again, I'm making this up. I'm just saying these are the kind of things that they will have. Charlotte Weir says, issue isn't contract interest, it's wages. Trent's on 190 grand. He needs to be promised the captaincy and a salary commensurate, around $250,000. Salah would have to halve his salary. Unlikely. I mean, that goes back to it. There's plenty of football clubs out there who would pay Salah not just what he's on, but possibly more still, particularly Saudi. They're in an interesting position. I do wonder, and I wonder who those clubs are. I don't know Man City would pay him. I don't know he'd go to Man City. I don't think Arsenal would pay him that. Man United would pay him that, but he wouldn't go to Manchester United. I mean, he'd score all the goals because Old Trafford is his. PSG would, but are they as attractive a prospect footballing-wise as they've been previously? I don't know if Bayern would go as high as that. Italy doesn't have that money anymore. Real Madrid do, but is he a first teamer for Real Madrid in a year's time? Probably, possibly. Barcelona would have in a million years, probably would pay the wages, but would struggle to register him as a footballer.
Yeah.
So Saudi have got the money, but not the football draw. I think there's a big case. I just think there's a big brinksmanship thing going on here, where Liverpool are not going to be held over the barrel. They're not going to be paying him $400,000 a week to do this, to be less good over the next 2 years potentially, or 3.
But in the here and now, just look at him. Like, absolutely sensational.
Just amazing.
You know what I mean?
Like,
just phenomenal. And you know, as much as you can say the underlying numbers may not reflect well in terms of giving him that 2-3 year extension, in the here and now, what he's able to deliver on the pitch. You mentioned the word machine earlier. I'm referring to somebody like, he is an absolute machine. So important to the Liverpool side. So again, with all 3 of these, I've been moving heaven and earth to get them the terms that made sense, but not at the cost of what happens further down the line. Because I think that's where that balancing act is for Liverpool right now. If that means we can't do X, Y, Z, then that's a real sort of hard one to sort of negotiate around.
Again, just sign it down. The thing for me is, I think Virg might finish his career at Liverpool. I don't think Salah will finish his career at Liverpool, and at some point you're going to have this issue with him. At some point you're either going to have to let his contract run down and let him leave, or sell him. And if you sign him down to a 2-year deal, does that mean you've got to sell him actually in the summer?
Next summer again, yeah. It comes around quick, all of a sudden, because of where we are right now and how far this has been allowed to drag on.
So will he want to sign a 2-year contract now that then he's going to get sold in the summer, not make as much money in terms of like signing on fee for wherever he goes to and all that? His agent certainly won't be telling him to do that. So yeah.
But what I will say on that, the Saudi thing feels like a non-starter to me right now where he's at in his career and just how brilliant he is.
I also think about the MLS, I've not even considered MLS, but I heard it mentioned on a podcast the other day I wonder whether he would be able to go and have that Messi-like impact. Is he that good? Because I've seen loads of brilliant players go, and is he just going to end up like Egypt Salah, where he gets plonked into a team and he's asked to do absolutely everything from right wing and actually gets no joy? Like Gerrard was at that a bit at the Galaxy, where he couldn't be a 26-year-old Gerrard would have been the greatest thing ever, obviously. But all of a sudden he needed good players around to pass to and to do his running for him, and they didn't quite have that kind of level. No. Zlatan gets to be brilliant because he just gets to get the ball kicked to him and do mad things and score goals. Anyway, another chat for another day. Anyway, it's the international break. Expect media outlets to throw misery at you. Don't buy into it. Liverpool are joint top of the Premier League. They've just beaten Manchester United by 3-0 at Old Trafford. Ten Hag's at the wheel, which is hilarious. And things are going pretty rosy so far. So yeah, the football's going to come thick and fast in a couple of weeks. So keep your heads up. And yeah, more from us if you want it. We've got a code if you want to get some more Redmen Plus goodness into your life. Half price of a yearly subscription. Use the code SLOT, SLOT. You can scan the QR code on screen or go to redmenplus.com. Choose a Captain yearly subscription and use the code SLOT to get it for 50% off. That's half price. It's a ridiculous deal. We've extended it because we're so happy after the Man United win. So yeah, go and fill your boots. Who you been talking to today?
Nobody
recently.
Today. Yesterday I did somebody. Okay. Yeah. Somebody on the Man City case has come down the line. A little bit of an aside to the Liverpool situation, but loads of people on Federico Chiesa, obviously. So yeah.
Kevin
Hatchard this week as well later on, talk about all Liverpool's Champions League opponents.
Excellent. So educate yourselves on everything happening around Liverpool and get more reaction. We had a good old laugh at Everton on the Bias Transfer podcast this week, so join us for that. Thank you so much. Ta-ra.